part that I was playing in the past. Now I'm super fast, real raw, relevant. I'm also known as super bad, with a super attitude. If you don't like it, you can book a pass and be the first in line to kiss mine. Wait a minute, what I mean is I'm a lion, not a sheep. I don't need a weakling around to try to follow me. I'm destined to be better, get it bigger every day. I don't got the patience to sit around try to play. Focus like an animal, king of the...
My friends, welcome to the Revolution podcast. I'm Jack Wick. Our last 10 minutes is already a podcast. You know what I'm saying? It's we're already on the roll, but I'm really excited for today because two things. One, I've constantly talked to people about asking, and there's not a lot of things that I'm certain of. I'm certain that you and I are eventually going to die, but I'm certain that the answer will always be no unless you ask a question. And so I'm sitting by the fire the other night here in LA, and I sent Mr. Lewis Howes a message on Instagram and said, dude, can we do a podcast? And I think positively, affirmation, it's typically going to be like, hey.
For me, it's typically no. For some reason,
I'm busy, I've got stuff going.
Well, I'm leaving next week, actually, for 2 weeks. I'm filming a new show. You like that?
How fitting.
It's perfect for you, right?
She
picked it out randomly.
Did you do that on purpose? Did you do that on purpose? I like your style, girl. Dude, we're going to get a picture of that when we're done.
Yeah, I leave on Monday for a couple weeks to film a show in New York City, and so I've just been back to back all week and saying no to everything. But I realized that if, you can make it happen and get here early, and this was the only time, then I was like, all right, let's do it.
And when you ping me back and you're like, oh, dude, see, I hate when your phone doesn't work. It didn't work. We'll get another one later. When you ping back at 8:30, I was like, done. So my friends, I've shared this with you 1,000 times, and I'll share it 1,000 more. Ask the questions.
Yeah. You got me at a good time.
How many deals have you done where like you're thinking no, you're thinking it's not going to happen, and all of a sudden you actually just like send that message or that email, and they're like, yeah, sure, let's do the deal. Yeah. And you're like, shit, that was easy.
I also think timing, like, don't always ask unless it's the right timing, or also, I almost never ask for anything unless I've given value for like 5 years.
Totally agree.
Then I'm like a very small ask. But usually people want to give more. If you continue to give and serve at a high level, people will want to help you, and they'll offer before you have to ask. Mm-hmm. So I always lead with, hey, I want to support you. I want to promote what you're doing. Whatever thing that people care about the most, I want to help them achieve that. And then not ask for anything and allow them to say, what can I do in return? And I'm just like, I'm good. But I might have a book in a couple of years, and I love support then. And I just kind of leave it at that.
So what you're saying is you've been Facebook stalking me and saying, dude, this guy's created a ton of value. Yes.
Exactly.
No, I appreciate it, man. I really do. Like, I agree. Like, one of the things that people ask me all the time, like on scaling my business and doing deals and this, that, and the other, like, how do I do this? I'm like, add more value.
That's it.
Add more value. We're in such a consumptive society where it's like, gimme, I need. And really, like, the value that you put out there, I wrote that in the book, like whether you and I have ever communicated on that or not, the value that I've gotten from you, the value that I get from Andy, the value that I get from content creators that are giving, like there's no, hey, give me this back. It's just like, hey, here's something I learned. Here's something that I'm seeing. Here's something that I'm experiencing. That's invaluable, man. I think that's like you and Andy talked about that on the podcast, about just literally giving people like you, vulnerability, putting it all out there.
Realness.
Yeah. So we were talking before, I wish we'd have been, maybe we caught some of that, who knows, but we were talking earlier about the podcast that you did with Andy.
Yeah.
Okay, and so to give kind of a backstory, social media is crazy. We're all connecting with each other. We're all vibing. Like, the circles are getting smaller and smaller and smaller when you realize the bandwidth that you have, and you just don't waste it on people that are just gimme. Mm-hmm. But I'd been following you for a while, and then I was driving home from one of my races and listened to the podcast with you and Andy. Mm-hmm. And you took on a completely different light to me. And I think this happens, right? Like you said, we're in the right place at the right time, and all of a sudden something comes through, and all of a sudden, like the paradigm shift. Steve Covey talks about, like, you're looking at this one picture, half the room sees the old lady, half the room sees the young lady, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit. But I was listening to that podcast, and this is really what, I would love to dive in with you on today, is how everything changed. And really, like, the aspect that you talked about in that podcast, if you strip away all of it, to me, it's telling the truth. Like you came to the marketplace, you came to this realization, you beat this guy's ass on a basketball court, the alpha, the whole thing, and all of a sudden step back and go, fuck, like, why am I so angry?
Yeah.
And I had that moment, and you and I were just talking about this. Your moment was on the basketball court. My moment was with a bottle of whiskey and a 9mm in my mouth, and I'll share a little bit more with you about that later. But tell me how this is like the journey that you've been on over the last couple of years, especially really the last 4 since you shared not only that story, and my friends, I'm going to post on this link that podcast with you and Andy because it's fucking powerful as shit. And every one of you listening right now, please go listen to this podcast because it moved me in a major way. Not only with you and connecting me with you, but there's so much fucking truth in that. But how has that journey been for you over the last couple of years as you've really understood the mask of masculinity, understanding like the alpha is not the motherfucker beating on his chest, but is the dude who can rip your eyeballs out, but then at the same time, like, tell you the deepest, most profound truths.
I think it's the one that knows he can dominate anyone, but never has to.
Yeah, Sun Tzu, the art of war.
Knows that he could, if he needed to, he could just beat everyone up in a room, but is also like this gentle, calm presence who, because he knows that, he never has to use that asset. He uses something even greater, which is his wisdom, his vulnerability, his love, and his awareness. And I think the ultimate alpha is the one who's aware of everything happening, everyone's feelings, everyone's emotions. If someone's uptight, and he can disarm them through his ability to connect, his ability to see through what that person is feeling, that other man, woman, child, whatever it may be, and show people that we're all in this together and that you're going to be okay, and really make people feel safe around him. And I think that's what the ultimate alpha does. It's not the one that dominates, it's the one that brings everyone together and says, hey, we got this, we can create a safe space together, and it's all going to be okay. Like, I'm here to support you to getting past what you're going through. And I think that's nothing. I never knew how to do that. I just knew how to, if something's not okay, I need to make sure that I defend myself,
the shit out of
beat
it.
the crap out of someone. And, you know, that's why football was so powerful for me, because I could take all my aggression out on the football field in practice or in a game and let it out in a safe environment, right, where it was legal to beat the crap out of someone. And so it always felt so good. And I was like an addiction to want to keep having it happen. When I got injured playing football, I no longer had a safe space to legally beat people up, essentially. And I still hadn't addressed my anger issues or my fears about myself or my insecurities about myself. So I didn't know where to go let it out. So it came out through verbal attacks, through shoving people, to fighting people, to whatever. In basketball games, I would always get defensive, pretty much all the time. If anyone gave me feedback on anything, you know, a post I did on social media to
just
a speech to whatever, it was just like, you know, you don't know me or this and that. And it was always defending myself.
Yeah.
And I think that's not a good way to live, you know, living in a place of give me more feedback. Okay, it wasn't effective for you. How can I be more effective? That's an ultimate alpha. The one who says, someone may be 10 years younger than me, 20 years younger than me, but they can still teach me something and give me feedback. I don't have to like it, but if I wasn't able to influence that person and move that person towards the direction I want them to, then that's feedback for me. If I wasn't able to attract my ideal partner, then that's feedback for me. Why wasn't she interested? Why wasn't he interested? Whatever it may be. If I wasn't able to unify my family when there's so much chaos and so much disconnection and people haven't spoken together in years, then that's feedback for me. I think the ultimate alpha takes 100% responsibility for everything in the world and says, there's chaos in politics, there's chaos in family, my health is out of whack. That's feedback for me, and I'm going to make it better. And I think I started to learn that around 30, 31, when I went through this workshop training, emotional intelligence leadership training, that got me to finally see that, you know, the abuse that I had experienced as a kid was something that was holding me back. And it was something that I was saying that everyone's abusing me. You know, once I was sexually abused once, it was like every person was abusing me is the way I told myself. And I had to defend myself against any attack. Every verbal attack, any feedback, it was like abuse in the way I looked at it. And that's why I was really defensive and angry and guarded and a people pleaser, because I just wanted to please people so they didn't give me negative feedback. And once I finally started opening up about it, to my friends, to my family, and then publicly, I decided to, after many months, it was the biggest weight off my shoulders. And it was the starting point for a new journey. And it's been 4.5, 5 years now. And I still have moments where I get defensive and rage and get upset. And even just last week, I got really upset at my landlord and, said some things I shouldn't have, right? And got really aggressive. But then afterwards, I was like, you know what? I ate the humble pie, I apologized and said, this isn't me, I'm sorry. And I owned it. And I'm quick to reflect and make it better. So it's been a journey. And I think the more we go after in our life, the bigger the dream, the bigger the demand on being aware of these things. Because it's easy for us to go back into that place of putting a gun in our mouth and drinking whiskey and saying, what's the point? Why should I even be here?
Yeah. Listening to you share that story of the basketball court. And again, guys, you got to listen to this podcast that Lewis did with Andy, because it's fucking powerful. I related to that. And I think literally every single person listening relates to that.
Yeah.
And what we're dealing with, and I've called this an epidemic, call it whatever you want, but we have like a real serious epidemic of a lack of truth in everything. From our media to our politics to our business to now marketing. You swipe through and you're like, there's a jaded perspective of everything's bullshit, because who's real and who's not anymore, because most people are full of shit. And
here's a new wave, not to cut you off, the new wave is uber vulnerability.
Yeah.
Where every post is like this ultra
feeling
vulnerability.
bad. I'm like, oh, dude.
Well, it's always like, it's a vulnerable post every time, and it just becomes inauthentic at that point. Because you're doing it to get attention and to get likes and to get comments. So I think you got to really be aware of that. Not every post needs to be like this pouring of your soul. Yeah. Here's, all the mistakes I've made and here's how I'm feeling. Because I think that's on the other spectrum as well.
I tell people, most of my clients and people that I coach and they come with questions, and 90% of the time my answer is tell the truth. Like, what's the truth? And what people think that means is I've just got to do one Facebook post and dump out all of my shit. But what's crazy is most people don't even become aware of that shit. They don't even understand it. And really being in that moment of like understanding it and feeling it. And that was the thing that I think that really impressed me about your interview with him is the basketball scene. I think we all get, and a lot of people do. And what Lewis was talking about is this rage. I mean, he literally beat the shit out of this guy, and you talk about how you literally
pummeled him on the ground,
stood up. You're looking at him, he's looking at you, and you're like, I remember you saying he was unrecognizable.
Yeah.
And like I've had that experience, like
scary, man,
where you're looking at somebody and you're like, fuck, I did that.
Yeah.
And then there's like the fear and the panic and shit, I'm going to go to jail and what did I do? And then no, that's not really me. I didn't really mean that. Like, no, I'm better than that. And then there's like this massive mind fuck of like, why did I just do that? But what was really impressive to me in what you were talking about is something that I parallel with and have shared on my podcast and shared for years through social media is like that reflection that you went through, going home and then really coming out and saying, okay, why am I angry? And that was the journey that I went through and I put a gun in my mouth.
Yeah.
I went through this experience, so I burned my entire business to the ground. I burned my entire world to the ground, $25+ million a year, 171 employees, and literally walked in one day and left.
Yeah.
Like signed the entire company over to my partner, took zero stock, zero equity, zero anything.
Wow.
Moved out of an 8,000 square foot house into a 2-bedroom condo and kind of went on my own little wilderness, my own little journey, and really like tried to figure out why the fuck I'm even here.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, I ended up having my basketball moment, was me calling my ex-wife one night and hearing on the other end of the phone her boyfriend, who's now her husband, saying, "Is that Sean? Just hang up the phone." And I'm in this dark, I'm on the basketball court, like years of like bullshit and lies and all of this stuff where like I couldn't tell anybody about the past and the fear, and I'm the guy and everybody looks at me and I'm the man. Like I can't say I don't know. I'll just bullshit my way through it, right? And long story short, she ended up hanging up the phone and that was my basketball court. Was I laid there at night trying to figure out like whether I should stay or go. Like, would it be better? My kids are young enough that if I blew my brains out right now, they'd forget me eventually, and life would move on, and they'd find a new dad, and this wrecking ball of a man that I had become, who had burned these businesses down, made millions, lost millions, like, I wouldn't be anybody's problem. But then the flip side is like, well, maybe there's something I should learn from this. Maybe, like, if I left, like, what am I really a pussy? Am I chumping out on life? Am I giving up? You know what I mean? But that moment was, the next day parallels what you talked about, where you're like, I don't want to be angry anymore.
Yeah. What can you
and
do
I
to
think
get better?
that's, dude, that statement alone, for me, changed my entire world. Because I went from, I've got every fucking answer, I know everything. Like, I'm young, I know everything. And even if I didn't know anything, I fucking bullshit my way through. So people are like, yeah, that sounds great. And I'm like, no, I have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. But yeah, let's roll with that, you know? And I couldn't ever ask for help. Couldn't ever say I don't know, because that was what the alpha was, right? We don't do that.
The know-it-all mask.
And I woke up the next morning and literally, like, as I was listening to your podcast, I literally got emotional, because I was like, dude, like, there are so many men and women, so many human beings that are fucking drowning, and they're drowning themselves. No one's drowning them. My ex-wife wasn't drowning me. I gave her all the power because I kept saying I was an asshole, but it was because she was a bitch. And I woke up that next morning, I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to change this. And when you woke up and you said, you know, you went to your friends and said, look, I don't know how to not be angry. Like, what do I do here? To me, we talked about, you know, Debbie Ford, Dark Side of Light Chasers, vulnerability. Vulnerability is a fucking superpower.
It is.
But you're not vulnerable on the football field. You're not vulnerable when you're standing in front of 10,000, 20,000, 30,000. You're not vulnerable when you're driving the car, doing the deal. Like you got to be the man. And to me, what makes my life fulfilling now is being able to go up in the mountains, shoot a deer, rip its guts out, feed my family, fight like professionally, do all the crazy stupid shit that we do as adrenaline junkies, drive a car, a truck 100 miles an hour through the dirt and smash shit. But like being also able to say like, I don't know, and I don't know how to fix this.
It's big.
And that was really what impressed me the most about, you know, your interview with Andy is I felt that, and that was the turning point for me. And I think that's something that like is really, really, really needed now in this marketplace. Is there's so many men that have the house, have the car, have the white picket fence, have the degree and the job and the thing and the Christmas card every single year, and you know, hey neighbor, how you doing? You know, kind of a deal. But inside they're fucking dying, drowning. Yeah. And that's where I was at 31 years old. Like I had everything that I was supposed to have temporarily. Yeah. And I wanted to blow my fucking brains out. Like, what do you say to that? How do you take that message? I mean, besides writing books, like, what do you say to people that come to you that say that? Because I know that you get that. I mean, you've talked about it. You talk about it in the book. You talk about it all over the place. I talk about it. Andy talks about it. We all know that this is like the elephant in the room, which is most people are full of shit. But you tell a guy he's full of shit, and he's like, I'm not full of shit. Fuck you, and they want to fight. But that's how we figured out, like, the real liberation is the truth. The real liberation is not saying, I feel sorry for me every day, but it's like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah, I think, it's funny. I was just talking about this with my team earlier this week, is no one knows the answer to why we're here. Really. We can think about what we can have a belief about it, but do we really know? We don't know.
Right.
And that's the question all of us ask, why are we here? It always comes back to why am I here? And as a kid, I used to think about, why am I even alive? In elementary school, I was picked on a lot. It was hard for me to study. And I was in the special needs classes. And I would get in trouble and go to the principal's office a lot. And I would just say, I wish I were dead. I wish I were dead over and over, because I felt so embarrassed always. I didn't feel accepted in my school. I was the youngest of 4, and I didn't really feel accepted in my family. Even though I know they loved me, but I just didn't feel it. That was a story I told myself. And I think I've always tried to figure out, why am I here? And even today, this week, I was talking to my team call. I was like, listen, some members of our team are going through some struggles, some challenges, emotionally, mentally. And I was like, we all don't know why we're here, and we're all in this together. We're all trying to just do our best and figure it out. But without a purpose or without a vision for our life that is meaningful, then we're going to live an unfulfilling life. It's already going to be challenging enough with a meaningful vision. there's always going to be setbacks. Even with that, without a meaningful purpose or vision, we are fucked. We are screwed, because that's when we have a bottle and a gun and say, why am I here? There's nothing I'm actually doing that's meaningful in this life, and I don't know why I'm here in the first place, so why even stay alive? So I think vision and purpose and mission is really important. And that can be as simple as asking people, what's your vision for the next 3 months, next 6 months? It doesn't have to be for your life. You don't have to figure out how to cure cancer. Like, let's get through a few months right now and give you a challenge. Like, what can you start practicing to learn something new that you haven't learned before? How can you get off your sister's couch? Or how can you stop drinking? Or how can you stop being abusive in your relationship? Or whatever it is. Let's work on a month at a time, 3 months, the year. Let's give you a goal. And let's create a vision for your life. You know, is it maybe to reconnect with your family and just be a good brother, a good son, a good husband? Cool, let's focus on that vision right now. Is it to have your shape being better? Maybe you're overweight. Let's focus on that vision. Why? Okay, so you've got a clear vision. Well, why do you want that vision? That's the kicker. You know, the reason why I have my purpose and my vision is because I feel the best when I'm helping other people. I feel the best when I see other people transform. When I see them get an idea from my podcast or a book or an event or whatever I'm doing, and they finally get something and hits them at the right moment at the right time, they take action, and then they get a massive result and they transform some area of their life. For me, that's exciting. It gives me meaning, and it's why I love doing what I do. So I think people just need to figure out what their vision is and why they want to do it. But as guys like me and you in our early 20s and teens, we wanted to make all the money, have all the girls, have all the cool stuff. That was our vision. And we did it. But there wasn't a deeper meaning why behind it. It was to prove people wrong. It was to look good. It was to act like we had all the answers.
Cover the insecurities.
Be the alpha man, whatever it is. And when we wake up and realize, well, I'm not happy with this, or this isn't fulfilling anymore. It got me to a certain place, but it's not fulfilling anymore. Then we have these awareness awakening moments. You know, hopefully we do. We did. Not everyone does, because people are sleeping, and we were able to wake up and say, wow, this doesn't feel right. Something is off. So what do I need to do differently? And luckily for guys like me and you, we went down and said, I need support. Can you give me feedback? I need to try something different because this doesn't work for me, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life living unfulfilled. And at the end of the day, who knows if this is the right path for me? I don't know. And it could all be over tonight, tomorrow, this year. Or it could be another 100 years for all I know. We don't know the answer to that. And so I focus on just one day at a time, saying, how can I bring the most value to humanity and also the most value to myself? Do things that make me happy, do things that bring me joy, do things that are fulfilling, and focus on that, because we don't know the answer to why we're here. So we just have to accept it, or have some type of spiritual belief that we want to believe in and own that reason if we want to go down that route. But I just know that I don't want to end my life regretting anything and saying, well, I wish I would have done the thing that really made me happy, or I wish I would have used the most of my talents to make a difference. I wish I would have, but I was scared. I was just chasing the money, or I was just chasing this. And my fear is at the end of the day, you're looking back and regretting it. And that's really why I wake up and do the things I do, is because what if I have to, when I'm dead, I have to reflect back and say, well, you just didn't do as good as you could have. So I want to be fully used up with my talents and turn what I don't think I'm that talented compared to so many people. There's so many smart people out there that are way smarter than me. And I want to say, you know what? I was the guy that wasn't that talented, but man, did I use all of it to make something incredible. Whether I see so many people around me, I'm like, if I had your talent, if I had your smarts, if I had your strength, your speed, all these other things, I'm like, I would be a machine. I would be unstoppable. So I just say, you know what? A lot of people are holding back on their gifts to the world, and I don't want to be one of those people.
Dude, what if you are the machine? What if you are unstoppable?
Well, that's what I believe, but I just wonder, what if I had that's a little more genetics or this or that, it would be even another level.
People,
so I'm just developing it.
Dude, and that's the thing that's beautiful about the conversation, and there's so many questions. People have asked me, what's your greatest fear? And my fear is that I'm laying on my deathbed which I probably never will be. I'll die in a fiery ball of madness
Jumping out a plane or
in the
something,
freaking desert. I'll smash my truck up or whatever. I'm not going to be the old guy that dies in his sleep, right? But I have, like, besides something happening to my children, my single greatest fear is that I'm laying on my deathbed knowing that God put stuff in here and passion in here, and I was more worried about what you thought.
Yeah.
Or she thought, or he thought. Like literally laying there knowing that I was this tool, this vessel that was given life. I mean, dude, you hear Gary rap about your 4 billion trillion, whatever the numbers are, to one to be here, right? But like, I have this ultimate fear that like I'm laying there knowing that God put like ideas in my brain and passion in my soul, and I squandered that shit because I was worried about what some asshole on social media would say, or that I was afraid what the marketplace would say, or I was afraid that it would fail, or that it wouldn't work. You know what I mean? But there's this question that I ask every single one of my clients, and it's, what do you want? And I think it's probably one of the most profound questions, because when you ask somebody, what do you want? Well, I want this. Why do you want that? And then this much, and the money and the whole thing. And then you end up going, well, I want, this much money to, really what I want to do is I don't want to struggle the way that I saw my parents struggle. Okay, cool. So let's talk. You start peeling back these layers, this vulnerability, if you will, these masks, as you call them, that just keep us from real fucking truth, man. Because the reality is, I wake up every single morning with like an immense amount of gratitude. Yeah. Because there are 39-year-old dudes that just didn't wake up. They didn't kill themselves. They didn't OD. Their ticket was punched. And I have this like phobia that this is the last sunset that I'm gonna see. So I used to drive and roll, and I'm going in the meetings and the thing, and all this stuff, and I just let all these sunrises and sunsets pass me by, and I'm like, dude, like this legitimately, I mean, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. No one is. Like this might be the very last podcast you ever fucking listen to. Like this might be the very last lunch that you ever have. And that's not morbid. That's not this like, oh dude, I'm going to live this feared life. To me, it excites me. It's like, I want to make this conversation with whoever I'm at, wherever I am, on the bus, on the train, at work, like the most meaningful, real shit and that I could have. Because if I don't, then why? If I don't share, like, and that's what I love about your book. That's what I love about the conversation. That's what I love about like this whole conversation of alpha and masculinity and the whole thing. It's like, dude, just tell the fucking truth to everybody, everywhere. Yeah. Like, why would you say anything other than that? Why would you tell your lover, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, anything other than like what's really fucking inside you? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because there might not be tomorrow. And I guarantee you walk through a graveyard. I don't know if you ever done this. You ever walked through a cemetery and just walked through it and just like felt being there and like looked at people? Yeah. It's something that I do, and it sounds kind of crazy and weird, but you walk through a cemetery and just look at headstones and look at the dates that people lived. And you walk through and you realize you see this kid who died at 30 and 20 something and 19, and you're like, I guarantee you that every single person in here would give anything, all the cars, all the money, all the shit, for 1 hour. Yeah. Like one more hour to say the stuff that they wanted to say, to right the wrongs, to do the things that they didn't do. And that shit, that's what drives me, man. That's why I'm like, when you talk about like waking up that next morning going, okay, I don't know. There's a lot of shit I don't know. That excites me. The unknown is what excites me. That's what drives guys. I mean, you're on a constant quest of learning and experience, interviewing like the most radically passionate, exciting people on the planet, because there's so much more to it. You know what I mean? Yeah. There's so many people though that don't know what they want. There's so many people that have no clue. When you say like, you got to create that, I'm fully on board with you. 90 days. I mean, shit, if you haven't worked out in 6 years, just getting your fat ass up and walking around the block is a big fucking deal. Like, that's a big thing to do today. But, how do you get to that place where you're willing to ask? Like, how do you get to that place? Because without going down the path that you and I did, everybody's lot is different. I think it's really hard. You got to bust somebody in the face, or you got to put a gun in your mouth. Like,
I think it's hard because we aren't going to bring awareness to our challenge unless there's something drastic in our life that happens. It's really hard.
You think that it has to take that to get like...
I mean, here's the thing. either there's a death in the family which wakes us up. There's a near-death experience that wakes us up. There's a fight that wakes us up. There's a breakup in a relationship. We get fired from our job.
Right.
Something has to trigger us to be like, oh, it's not working. Something isn't working. And I think that's the challenge. A lot of us, if we're that egocentric and that alpha maniac mentality, it's hard for us to have this awareness.
Yeah.
And be like, oh, something's not working for me. If you feel like it is, if society is telling you it is, I'm making more money, I'm hooking up with more girls, I'm doing this, it's hard for us to look within and say, but it doesn't feel right. Because everyone's like cheering you on. And that's why having really close friends, I think, to call you out on your stuff is something that you can do before having a breakdown in your life or near-death experience or freaking, Andy having his face sliced up and almost like dying, right? I think that's the challenge. We need to be aware before things happen by having these conversations ahead of time, by having someone close to us that we can listen to and trust. And if they give us feedback on how to improve, then we need to be able to look at that. But a lot of us men who think this way, who have big egos or driven by material things, it's hard for us to look at that. It's just really challenging. That's why for me, when I had that fight, it was a wake-up call. It's like, oh crap, I was going through a up and down relationship that ended pretty poorly. This fight happened, and I had a really bad, fallout with my former business partner. And like these three things, and it's just like more and more stuff kept happening. I was like, why is this happening? But I'm at the top of my game. I'm making money. Like I'm getting all this acknowledgement. But why is everything else seem to be breaking down? Luckily, I had the awareness to ask for support and to like say, hey, I need some help. I'm not sure what to do. Luckily. But there was 30 years of me that never asked because I was just like, I'm going to figure it out myself. I'm going to do it myself. I think that's the challenge.
What do you think for people right now listening that are...
I think joining like a men's group or something, even just being like, hey, I just want to learn how to be a better man and have these conversations, allowing other people to call you out that you respect, other men that you admire who are achieving things. I think that's why mentorship is really powerful.
Dude.
I had mentors early on.
We can wrap it at that. Like we can be done with that. Like that's a game changer. I speak that, preach that, live that.
Yeah. I had great mentors in my 20s, but even then, it's hard to fully, I think I was a lot better than what I would have been if I didn't have mentors. And that's why I think it's important to have a personal advisory board. Ed Milet talks about this, having, a group of 5 to 7 guys that you really admire who are older than you, who have achieved certain things that you would like to achieve in your life, and having people in different walks of life, like a spiritual personal advisor, like a business personal advisor, like a health, a relationship, a guy who's got a marriage and kids that you really respect, and just being able to reach out to those guys once in a while and just ask for feedback, ask for support. And I think if we try to do it on our own, we're always going to struggle. But when we find a team of great people, we set ourselves up for success. We're still going to struggle with a team. There's still going to be challenges.
You can have the sweetest, slickest website. It's still going to crash. You can have the dopest technology, and it's still going to go down. But the definition of insanity is banging your head against the wall over and over and over again. And I felt that way. Like I had the business and built the deal up, and what type of business was it? Similar, real estate.
Yeah,
we were flipping houses. We were huge. The market was crashing everywhere, all over the country. From 2007 to 2012, we flipped almost 4,000 properties. Wow. And I had been in the mortgage game earlier in the early 2000s, so I saw what was coming and knew and kind of positioned myself right and had all these networks and agents and people all over the country, and we were crushing it, and we were making tons of money in the whole thing, but it was like burning the candle at both ends, working 20-hour days, but I was that guy, like you couldn't tell me anything. I think, dude, if I tell people this all the time, and I don't care if you're making $100 million, if you're making $100,000, you're making $10,000. Like surrounding yourself with good people, solid people. Like if you're wanting to learn, for people listening to this podcast, like you're at a good place in the game. there's no top, and he talks about there's no top. I'm at the top of the game. Motherfucker, not even close. Like nobody is,
level.
right?
Yeah.
Because all the smart people are still trying to go different places, right? Yeah, I mean,
You
still,
could say he's at the top, but he would probably be like, I'm just beginning.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
And what's funny is success leaves clues and the whole thing. But like, what I'm really fascinated by is that differentiation of kind of the pre-meltdown me to now saying like I'm like a fiend for good people, for good knowledge, for good information, where before it was like, whatever, dude, it's just hocus pocus shit. And I think that's something huge that you're onto. And you don't have to have a gun in your mouth. You don't have to burn the fucking business to the ground. You don't have to leave the marriage. Like just being able to stop and acknowledge and saying, okay, I don't know everything. Right? Like I don't know
I just
everything.
want to get better.
Or how do I sharpen this tool or that tool? I mean, one of my trainer, his wife just did the Olympia, and took third place, third in the world, like the third fittest, rippest, freaking gnarliest, badass chick on the planet. And what's fascinating to me about her and Justin, my trainer, is like as soon as she got back home, it was like, I want to do this better and this better. I'm like, you're like fucking the physique, like the magazine cover, right? But there's this idea of I want more, and it's not to have more, but it's like I want to get better. I want to learn how to do this better, this better, and this better. And I think what you're saying right now is literally like one of the most pivotal things that any human being can do. And I don't care where you're at in life, like what your status is, how many fucking cars you're driving, how many houses you have, like. There's always the ability to grow. There's always the ability to learn more.
And I think our fulfillment and happiness comes from growth and the value we add back to the world, our contribution, how we help others, and the things we're creating that make a difference. But if we're not growing and we're not adding value to people, then we're not going to be fulfilled. We're going to be saying, why am I here? What's the point? We're going to go back to the question that all of us have. And that's why we should always be thinking of how can I learn something new? How can I get better at something I'm already good at? Or maybe I don't want to do this anymore. Okay, I got to learn something new and grow in a new area of life. And how can I add value to other human beings? That's going to bring us the most fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's not how many girls we sleep with or how much money we make. That brings temporary fulfillment and passion and joy, but it's not the long-term fulfillment where you feel really good when you go to bed at night.
Yeah. Something you said earlier, it just triggered a thought. Paul Arden wrote a bunch of really amazing books, but he wrote a book called Steal Like an Artist, which is brilliant, and Show Your Work, and these are like at the top of my suggestion list. If you haven't read that book, read that book, by the way. But he talked about how reframing, we always say to people like, dude, do you like this? Is this good? Like, what do you think? Like, when I wrote my book, it was like, it's scary as fuck to write a book, by the way, which like when you're like, okay, we're done, send it. And you're like, no, fuck, wait, I want to change this. And you reread it. Like, I can't reread it or watch stuff. But like, one of the things he said, which I think is massively powerful, which really leads to what you're saying of having coaches, having mentors, is instead of saying like, what do you like about this? Saying, how can I make this better? And I've kind of retrained my mind and refocused everything to like, what could I do better with my podcast? What could I do better with my business? How can I better drive my truck? Like, it sounds so elementary to some people, but I've gone to guys that are like at the top of the game in off-road racing and said, how can I corner better? Because I want to be better at this shit. Like, and so you go to the guys that are crushing it, that are killing it, that are at the top of the game. But I think asking just different questions and saying, like, how can I do this better? How can I do I like better?
This? People are to say, I like this one part, I like this, but I'm always, you ask my team, I'm always saying, what can we make this better? How can we make this better? What could make this the biggest impact on people if we did what? What do we need to change or adjust? I think you're onto something there, is really asking those type of questions as opposed to asking questions to feed the ego. Ask the questions to feed humanity and improvement. That's what it's all about.
I've noticed the guys who are receiving the most, if you will, whether it's financial abundance, whether it's, you talked about abundance in the podcast, like whether it's, spiritual enlightenment, health, are the people that are giving the most.
Yeah.
Like if you're holding on to everything, he talks about this in the book, like ideas are just floating around and all an idea is waiting for is somebody to take it and run with it. But if you're constantly just like hoarding these ideas and hoarding this stuff, thinking like you're at the top of this idea, like bucket, you can't put anything else in there, so give it away.
Yeah.
Like, give stuff away, add value. I mean, the amount of value that you put out on social media, as like Andy, Ed, I mean, Gary's like the content fucking master, right? I mean, I don't even know how many D-Rocks he has in his office now, but
about 15 in there, just like constantly editing.
It's unbelievable,
crazy,
you know. But it's changing the game, and I think what's really fun about this conversation is it's allowing people to see, like, people look at you, top of the game athlete, the whole thing, and you can still say, I don't know.
Yeah.
I need help. I want help. One of the things that was really powerful for me in your podcast is where you were at the retreat. You know, and you shared what you shared. And I'm finding the more I connect with people, the more conversations I have, the more just engagement, the more I open myself up, the more people I'm finding that have so much, I like to refer to it as like rocks in the backpack. Like, we're carrying this backpack around, there's all of these lies and all of these stories and all of this bullshit in this backpack. And we're trying to sprint. We're trying to run, we're trying to earn, we're trying to be a good dad, we're trying to, like, you know, build this empire, but yet we're schlepping around 8,000 pounds of rocks, wondering why we can't run fast. What was that like for you in being in front of a group of people, sharing shit that you've never shared, and really like getting to a place where it's terrifying, but at the same time, like what I've heard you talk about is liberation.
Yeah, I mean, it was the scariest moment probably I've ever faced, because I was so afraid of what people were going to think about me and the judgment. And I already, you know, as a kid, didn't have friends. And I was like, this is going to end me having zero friends for the rest of my life. Yeah, I was like, that was like my biggest fear. Is anyone going to like me, you know, or accept me for who I am? I never thought people would. So I always put on masks to fit in, to be accepted.
The athlete mask.
Everything.
Business, money, sex.
Yeah, know-it-all, whatever, everything. And so it was a huge fear to just shed everything from my entire life. Like, all my fears were at this one moment. If I shared this, would I still be accepted by anyone? And I felt like I had no other choice, though. It was like, now is the only time. I'd never shared it before, and if I didn't share it now, I probably would never share it. I'd probably cop out the rest of my life. So luckily, the experience created the opportunity for me to step forward, because so many other people were sharing stuff, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So that gave me the courage to finally do it. And it was the right timing, it was the right setting, it was like all this stuff was happening in my life that I was seeking the answers. And I was like, well, maybe I just need to share this. And I did, and I remember running out of the room afterwards because I was just so embarrassed, and I was crying, and I was like bawling, and I was just like, I can't believe I just shared this. I couldn't look anyone in the eyes because I was so shameful of what I had said and what I'd been through and what had happened to me. And afterwards, you know, I was outside this, you know, the conference room or whatever, and so many men came up to me one by one and just started saying, "You're my hero." And it was so moving for me to have them look me in the eye and just constantly say, like, I can't believe you even said that, you know, you're my hero. It took so much courage. You know, I was judging you before and thinking this of you, but now that I know, you know, more about you, I just trust you so much more. Like, I see you so much more. I believe in you so much more. I was like, what? This is crazy. You like me more by knowing the thing that I'm ashamed of, and you trust me more and all these things. And, you know, it got easier to talk about to my friends and family. It was still challenging, but it got easier. And then when I came out publicly, the more I started telling people about it one-on-one, they were like, you need to share this, because I've never heard of like a guy that looks like you who's been through an experience like this coming out publicly and talking about it. And I was like, no freaking way am I going to let the world know or my audience know about this, because it's going to hurt me. It's going to, you know, my fears were still in the way. And I ended up doing a podcast episode and waited for like 3 or 4 months to post it because I was just terrified. I was scared still of what people would think. But I felt like it was something I had to do. It became more of a mission. Like, if I could help a few men who maybe were going through this to start opening up to their friends and family and releasing this, then maybe I could save a few lives, or I could just help people improve. And so I was more committed to serving a few people than gaining more followers and making people like me or something. And when I put it out, I remember I was sitting on this balcony over here, And I just decided that night, I was like, okay, I got to put it out. Like it's waited too long. I got to put this out. I was sitting right here, posted it on my blog. This is when I used to post stuff myself. Now my team does it all. And I just clicked like publish. And it's probably like 10:30 or 11:30 at night, somewhere in that range. And I published it and I just sent one tweet out. And I was just like, I can't remember what I said, but something like, I'm sharing something really vulnerable here or whatever. You know, would love your guys' thoughts. And then I shut my computer down because I was just terrified of what people would see. I was like, hopefully no one sees this tweet. It's like 11 at night. Maybe no one will see it.
Purposely sending it.
Yeah. And then I go outside and sit on a chair out in this balcony. And I remember looking up and it was just like the whole city of LA seemed to be lit up. It was like the sun was out at 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, man, this moon looks really bright. And I went on Google and I just started seeing people talking about like this supermoon that was happening that night. And it was like, I guess it was like one of the biggest or closest supermoons in the last 100 years or something like that. And then I looked up, what's the meaning of a supermoon? And it was like the moment when, like truth is revealed and the earth shakes or something like that. And I was like, this is freaking crazy because I wasn't planning this, but it just felt like it had to come out finally. And in kind of the divine timing or whatever you want to call it, it happened at that moment. And then the next day I woke up to hundreds of emails of men just messaging me saying, thank you. Here's what I went through. Here's what I experienced when I was younger. Women thanking me and saying, my husband hasn't been able to talk about this to anyone. He's suffocating and it's killing him inside. I shared this with him. And he's finally starting to talk more about it. Thank you. So just so many people, for weeks I was getting messages. And it was almost like this hangover feeling. I've never been drunk, so I don't know the feeling of having a hangover. But it was just like this hangover feeling of like, oh my gosh, it's like so much energy and emotions coming my way that I was taking it all on and feeling it all. The pain of hundreds of men that were emailing me, that it took me a while to kind of recover from sharing this out and kind of releasing it to the world and then hearing all this stuff from people. But it's still been my most downloaded episode and probably the most impactful thing that I'll ever do. That and then write this book about masculinity. I just felt like after that I needed to write a book about this of my journey and saying I want to learn more about myself as a man and why I did these things and why a lot of men do these things that hurt themselves and hurt their friends and family. And that's when I started going down the journey of self-discovery and figuring out more and more about how we can get better as men in general.
So the most impactful thing was just telling the truth.
Yeah, revealing it. The thing that I was most ashamed of, sharing it. And I don't think people need to share this with everyone. These things, anything that we're ashamed of, I don't think we need to share it with the world and post it on social media. I don't think that's necessary. But I think sharing it with someone or important people in your life and letting them see you, I think is really important. But keeping it in is what kills us.
How is it? It's killing people.
Yeah.
It's literally killing people.
Yeah. I mean,
Like
it's causing
the amount of
cancers,
weight
disease, obesity, everything. Yeah.
You the amount of weight that people are carrying around,
Yeah.
emotionally, psychologically, is literally killing people.
Yeah.
Liberation. Like, how has it been? It's almost like the floodgates open, huh? You're like, well, shit, I'll talk about anything.
Everything,
Fuck,
exactly.
let's bring it all on. Let's talk about whatever. I don't really care. Like, we'll talk about all of it.
Right.
But the amount of liberation, because I've been there, man.
Yeah.
Like, and I am finding more and more badass fucking people that are sharing more and more. And it's not like you said, just, I'm gonna dump out all the dumb shit that happened today. But it's like the fucking truth.
Yeah, and I think it's also, be discerning about how you share it and when you share it and, the timing of things. You don't just want to like post it all out there just when it comes to you. I think you really want to be discerning about how you share things because you want to be sensitive to what other people are going through. You want to be, attentive and aware of other people's experiences as well and be mindful of it. So
I think what's interesting is you didn't share what you shared for people there in the room,
right,
or the world or the marketplace.
Right.
The intent wasn't, okay, I need to get a ton more followers.
Right.
I want to get a shit ton. I want Gmail to shut me down because I get so many emails.
Yeah.
Like, what do I have to do that? I think what's phenomenal about that awakening, that moment, is just saying, dude, I'm tired of fucking carrying the rocks.
That's it. Yeah.
You know, this is my truth.
Right.
This is my truth. Like, sunny, rainy, up, down, rich, poor. This is who the fuck I am.
Yeah.
Like, this is me. You know, and what's phenomenal is the more I speak with people, the more I engage, the more I coach, the more I, talk to people. It's like, people aren't afraid of failure, because pretty much everybody's fucked up countless times. If you really stop and think about how many times you've fucked up, you're an expert. I'm an expert. Most human beings are experts at failing. We've done it so many freaking times. But I hear people say all the time, I'm afraid of failing, I'm afraid of failing. Like, people aren't afraid to fail. Like, people are afraid of being judged. Period.
Yeah.
And I don't want to share this, and I don't want to share that. And that night that I sat on my bed and did the post that started all of my social media and hundreds of millions of views later, was like me sitting on the corner of my bed saying, I fucked up.
Yeah.
Like, I never would have imagined like how dark it really was. Like, I was at the top of the game, newspapers, magazines, but I was fucking dying, and it was like I was just adding these rocks, and I'm finding more and more and more that it's not sitting down saying, hey, how can I create a post today that people are gonna love and that's gonna share like some deep dark thing, but it's like, what the fuck is happening inside of me? Like, where am I really at?
Right.
And it was sitting down saying, like, I was an asshole, right? And I was not kind in my divorce because I was angry, I was bitter, I was mad. And then having this post go viral, I know exactly what you're saying. It's like all these people like, oh my God, you have it figured out. And I'm like, whoa, wait a second. I'm just figuring me out. Like, I'm just sharing with you like the real shit. And I didn't put the asterisk in there. I was a dick, but it was because it was like this is who I am. This is where I am. And to me, like, the liberation is why we're here. You go back to the original, why are we here? Like, I don't think, whether you believe in God or not, it doesn't matter, right? I don't care who you pray to, what you pray to, it doesn't matter. But like, we're obviously here for something.
Right.
Like, we're these little teeny microns, and I don't know all the science behind molecular structure, but we're on this giant fucking rock that's spinning through the cosmos that we've yet to find the edge of. And somehow, some way, we're here in this moment, people listening to this wherever they are, and there's like an experience happening right now. And it's the idea of literally drowning yourself, like keeping yourself back from the fullest potential relationships, the fullest potential abundance financially, and making love and fucking just like so fucking radically passionate versus this superficial, I'm afraid to say, I'm afraid to talk, and building this empire and living with your children, like really fucking experiencing life, because we're afraid that our past or some stupid experience or something that happened to us is going to make us look bad, yet it's who we are.
Yeah.
It's who we are. Like, that was the thing that really moved me the most about your podcast, man, is I felt it. And I think that because I've been there, I think what you said earlier is like sharing and adding the value.
Right.
You've been there.
Yeah.
Like, you can speak to it. Call it being an expert. I don't really care about the labels of expert or whatever, but like, I can tell you what it's like to contemplate blowing my brains out because I put a gun in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell you what it's like to build a fucking company and to be so fucking depressed and like inside my own mind, like nobody gets it, right? And I think that's what's really beautiful about the story, not only your journey, but millions of other people that are having this awakening, like saying, I'm doing this to myself.
Yeah.
It's just telling the truth. And it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't necessarily need to be in this grand manner of like Facebook or this or that or the other, but finding the ability to understand that that's who you really are. Like, that message, your mess is your message.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one of my favorite quotes is by Thomas Monson, the late president of the Mormon Church. And he said, you are who you are today because of the choices and decisions that you made yesterday. You are who you are today because of the choices and decisions you made yesterday. Yeah. And I firmly believe that. But most people's initial reaction is to the bad, to the negative, to like, oh, I fucked all these things up, so I can't be a good person. No, dude, that's what makes you a killer. That's what makes you a badass. Like that experience. And I think that's what's phenomenal about your story, your journey, is you share that, and all of a sudden it's like you're sitting here and you're like, oh shit, the moon, the sun. Like life takes on a completely new meaning when you're honest.
Yeah.
What do people need to do right now to experience liberation?
You just need to talk to someone you're close with and share them anything that they don't know about you that you're ashamed of, and say, hey, I want to have an honest conversation with you, and I'd love for you not to judge me, but just listen, and I don't need you to say anything, but I just want to share how I'm feeling. I think that's the most powerful way, is when you share it with another human. I also think you can just write yourself a letter and say all the things that I'm insecure about or ashamed of or afraid of other people knowing about me. And write yourself this letter. Write it to yourself. No one needs to see it as well. You can just write it yourself and reflect on it. And then I think if you eventually start to talk about it with someone else you care about, that's going to give you a lot of freedom. When someone can see inside of you and see everything that you're going through and how you're feeling and thinking, it's a powerful thing.
It's what the world's starving for.
That's it, man.
The world's starving for truth, man.
That's it.
We've got the books, we have the tools, we have the resources. People, in my opinion, want to be liberated.
Yeah.
And telling the truth, like sharing who you really are, what you're afraid of, not having every answer, not bullshitting people. You can smell that from a mile away, but like just sitting there and saying, yeah, this happened. It's real. Yeah. It's the most liberating thing that I've ever done. It's the most liberating thing. That's, I think, what attracted me so much to that podcast. I listen to tons of podcasts. That one was like, we listened to it again yesterday with Patrick, and it was like, it just resonates with me because I get that, you know? I mentioned earlier, just standing in front of this group of people and talking about real truth, and how many of you have thought about darkness or depth or whatever. Everybody does. We think we're an island, and nobody does.
Yeah.
Okay, so if these next words were your last, what would they be?
Love yourself and love humanity.
Sweet.
That's it.
Dude, you're a rock star. Seriously,
Thanks,
thank you, man. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours and hours more. I know that you've got stuff to do. Thank you for spending an hour with me, with everybody, with the 4 million billion people that are watching this podcast. I'm working to get to this level, to have the pictures and the accolades and stuff, but you're motivating a lot of people, bro.
Thanks, man.
Me included. So I appreciate the value you're adding. My friends, go listen to Lewis's podcast. Follow him on Instagram. We'll put all of your links and everything in there, but tell the truth.
That's it.
Tell the truth. Yeah. And live it. Be proud as fuck of who you are.
That's it, man.
My friends, thank you for listening. Subscribe. Please share. Please like. Please comment. Please go follow Lewis and add a ridiculous amount of freaking value today. We love you. See ya.
My people, it's time to move out. Move out. My people, it's time to move out. Show 'em what we do now. They say that work seems so hard to follow. I am not a role model, only a teacher. Teach 'em when the school's out. Preacher man preaching to each his own. Mano, we mano, fly away.